in person though?
That's what it sounded like.
Okay, all right.
That's how I took it.
Yeah, Jan was in person, I think.
I'll leave that up there in case anybody pops on. We'll see, if you see them and I don't, please.
Good.
We are live streaming. Yep.
All right. Welcome everyone to the August 15th special meeting of the City of Geneva IDA. We'd like to call the meeting to order. Mission statement is that Geneva IDA was created to promote, develop, encourage, and assist in acquiring, constructing, maintaining, equipping, and furnishing certain types of projects and facilities to advance the job opportunities, health, general prosperity, economic welfare, and recreation opportunities of the citizens of the City of Geneva. Okay, we have agenda before us. Is there anything that anyone would like to add to the agenda? We're primarily will be talking about the GEDC. We have a management agreement, and then we'll have a brief executive session. There's just some activity on that we need to report on. So anything? No? All right, let's go on to the review of the next steps of the GEDC. Amy.
Yes, so you guys have had many conversations about the GEDC. And we wanted to have this special meeting to talk about, after we had the presentation, what direction this group wants to go. So you have a pending agreement that's also on the agenda for a management firm that has been managing it. And I think what Mr. Mancuso had brought to you was really three kinds of scenarios. The first, to divest of that completely and move beyond the GEDC. Second, continue kind of the path and operations that you're doing now. And third is taking a more aggressive approach with that path. And so I think what we were planning today is based on those conversations. Oh, there's Kat. With her new and she has joined. Waiting room.
Up one. You got up one?
Oh,
There you
sorry,
go.
thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Hi, Catherine. Hi, Catherine. How are you?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes, we can.
We just got started. Amy was just introducing the discussion about the GEDC, kind of as a follow-up on Tom Mancuso's presentation a month ago, and kind of what we need to discuss, and we really hadn't had the opportunity to discuss it in an open meeting, and so Amy was good enough to put this together.
Yeah.
So, who wants to start? Who's in a good position to start?
I don't want to go right to the end conclusion in my mind, but I might as well just, because I think I mentioned it that the last time we discussed it. It seems as though we cannot abandon the building. We can't just say walk it. So to me, walking away a 200,000 square foot structure like that is a mistake, and it'll just deteriorate, and maybe it'll demolish itself by deteriorating, which happens. I don't want to be part of that. That's just me. The idea that I had last time was that we need to have a little bit more income, and a little bit more income could come from the city because of the just give us a small rent increase, take that rent increase, and improve 2 or 3 spaces, make them showcase spaces. And when I was, after the meeting, I talked to the gal from Cornell. She was pretty high up. She actually runs the ag department or whatever it's called here.
Right.
Yeah, and I spoke to her about it. And first I asked her if they'd consider a pilot. And she said, oh no, we're suffering. We don't have much money. So anyway, that's out of the question. But anyway, then I talked to her about, what did you sense about the building when you walked in? And she says, it's just dirty. It was just a mess and embarrassing. I couldn't really bring people that wanted space in there and come away with a good feeling. So I thought with $50,000 or $100,000 in our account. We could use that money to really improve the entrance and the place to initially park at the outside, and then have some interesting signage and find a space or 2 or 3 that we could really make attractive, and then show people those spaces as typical, and then ask for, their rent would then help fund future improvements, step by step. That's all. Not a huge investment, but short term. It may be hard because none of us, I guess, have the time to manage that. Maybe I would be closest because I'm semi-retired, and I wouldn't mind meeting people to take them through. Be a super salesman for a while. I can do that. But those are my thoughts.
I think to remember too, you are paying a management firm to do some of that.
Yeah, and of course, we're not managing the management firm. There's some, I think David was doing a good job. He starting to do a good job. He was starting to get on top of them and saying, hey, you gotta take care of this. And he's spending some time over there.
The best it had ever been was with David.
Yeah, because we had a focused person.
Yeah, prior to him, we didn't
It
have
was
that.
part of
and we
his
currently
job
don't.
description, so.
Well,
Yeah.
it was above and beyond, I think, his
Oh,
job
yes.
description is what the
Yeah.
challenge is with that.
And I was on a number of visits from outside people, like you said, where he took them through. And there are some spaces that aren't half bad. Up in the office spaces, we were showing that to a couple of people that were looking for it. But it's an access issue. You'd have to come through the front door on Genesee. You can't come in at grade because then you got to go up 8 steps to get to. So even this one company, Cornell offshoot, was looking to assemble. They wanted a cleaner space. And the office space was just about the right size. It was about 1,000 square feet, which speaks to what Tom was saying, that we really need to get down to where startup companies usable size space. So 30,000 square foot spaces in a startup company.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
But the equipment they brought in needed to be offloaded on a truck. So we said, well, you can come up the ramp, but you're going through a 36-inch door, a couple turns to get into this space. And the woman thought it would be okay and stuff like that. Anyway, they never get back. But the space is pretty clean. I mean, it looks pretty good. It's got a nice suspended ceiling. Carpet's old, probably hasn't been cleaned in 20 years, but and like you kind of said, just some quick cleanup would help, washing the windows and things like that. Because I know Webster's not doing anything. I don't think there's no evidence that they're doing anything like that. Bob Ritter goes around, I guess, and picks up some stuff if there's something obvious.
Yeah.
And they get the lawn cut if whatever, or the weeds cut down, I guess is what it is.
I think it's important to think, is there a more efficient, less expensive way to do at a minimum what we're doing now? Because if we were getting the same level of service cheaper, we're at least saving some money. I don't think that's the answer, to just say, we just want to have something that's cheaper, but is it a different model of management?
Well, and I think, and that's your effort for the assistant city manager, and possibly organizing something that would include the executive director. That's certainly one of the things that Tom Mancuso said, is really this needs full-time management if you're going to do it right, not this part-time from out of town. That would help help develop the space and and do the incubator, which is more towards what our mission is. But that's like the third level. You actually jump up and have full-time management, invest some money in not just cleaning up the space, but partitioning off the spaces, making access available. I think of the buildings I've been in, particularly in Rochester, I've been in the old Delco building.
Yeah.
Lyle, partitioned off up the wazoo in this great space. They put concrete block walls in between all this. Big lanes. I mean, you could drive 3 buses down them,
Yeah.
get through there. There's a building on Boxart Street, or down a Shalat that also used to be a warehouse, or part of it is still warehouse, but it used to be. And not necessarily, but it's all divided up into these little 2,000 foot cubicles. And they get $500 a month for them. And the bathrooms are clean, you know, they must have some of the loading docks are accessible.
Yeah.
My son rents a space in there, and it's, you know, good. They got electricity and whatever. I mean, it's a nice space. They just put new windows into space. They're not replacing all the windows in the building at once. They're doing it kind of, if they have a stable tenant, they upgrade it a little bit, or if they have opportunities to get some. So it's kind of like, if we're not going to abandon the building. And I think my sense, abandoning the building would be selling. Is that the way you're thinking about it?
Yeah, that's the only way I would abandon it. If someone else takes it, I'm not gonna walk away and let it crumble, yeah.
Well, and if we don't start making improvements or getting.
It will crumble.
Yeah.
It is.
By
it is-
default, that's what
it
it
is.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where we're already at with
Yeah.
Kind of, you know,
building C.
and we do need to, you know, there are some things that we need to do, so. Like taking down that building and maybe figuring out a way to get a grant to do that or whatever, and that's kind of. You know, again, we're going, you know, take off this hat. And
Yeah, right.
another one, if you would, you know, how do we
Yeah.
achieve the goal that Lowell's mentioned of a slow increase in the rent?
And it's probably not just the city's rent you should be looking at.
Oh, it's everyone's rent.
It's the entire building.
But in my experience, we've had trouble with the building in such bad condition to charge more. You know, it's kind of, I mean, I think the kitchen got some because some money was spent to clean that up.
Mhm.
And there are some issues with the kitchen, with the way they're disposing of the waste and stuff like that, that we, again, and Webster's probably not. But, you know, they say they are, but apparently it's still a problem as far as Joe's concerned.
That is,
Um,
it is. The pictures prove.
so it's not just the rent, but it's also how do we get that building down? And those are like, to me, the
Yeah.
first steps.
Utilizing the funds that the IDA/GEDC does have the right way to build this thing back up.
And if some of the pilots that we're considering over the next 2 years come to fruition, that would give us a little bit more
Yep.
to investors. And that's kind of what. I mean, that's kind of one of the justifications for having an IDA in Geneva, instead of relying on the county to cover the pilots. Is that we can take the money ourselves and invest it in
Yeah.
something.
You do get
If we
that.
don't have the GEDC, we're just gonna sit on it, you know, what are we gonna do? We can't give it away. I mean, I've tried to figure out ways to give,
Right.
You have tried, Ann.
you know, well, you know, can we give this company the startup grant or something like that, or can we pay the rent? I wanted to get a space that we pay the rent to have a grocery store come in. We pay the rent for a year, maybe entice them to come in. No, you know,
Yeah.
my friend Steve says, no, you can't do that.
Well, it's tough too, because,
At almost every meeting,
you know,
he says, no, you can't do
to
this.
sell that and you
We have to.
lose control of an
Yeah.
enormous building.
It could be an asset for sure.
right. So,
Yeah. So so that is part of it. And then the other thing is this mega grant that would kind of I believe there was a $10 million grant to start
Mhm.
off, something like that.
Mhm.
That was in the mid-90s, 95 maybe, 90,
Mhm.
90 when they did the awnings and they put the elevator in and they did, I mean, all that stuff's a good 20, 30 years old.
yeah.
And that's when they put up the original partitions that are pretty much beat up. A lot of holes in the wall or tow motor hitting the doorways and stuff. And that's part of why it looks shabby is that stuff's kind of
Is
there.
that drywall?
When I went, the party wall between the Geneva Theater Group and the, what was the Sandal people, but then,
Yeah.
Friends of Logic.
Pretzel logic,
Yeah.
yes.
It's that wall you could go like this, because it
Yeah.
really wasn't attached to anything, and the light fixtures in the ballast go right through the wall, which is, if it's not a firewall, if you got wiring, a light fixture, particularly a light fixture that is old fluorescent lights that have PCBs in the ballast, and I mean, all that stuff should be taken out of there, along with some of the asbestos and stuff. And so those are the investments you'd have to make. But I think that's what Tom Mancuso was really talking about, is saying, okay, make a commitment and then start doing it. Do you have to do it all in 1 year? Absolutely not. But I think your idea of taking one of those parcels and dividing it up and, seeing how well it goes. And saying, okay, here's 3,000 square foot spaces. Maybe make them all accessible from the outside. There's places like Lions Bank has a fairly nice space there. It has an outside door. It's just a man door. I'm gonna say it's probably 4,000 square feet. I might even have it right here. 3581 square feet. How's that? Not bad. It's a nice space. They don't work in there. They dump furniture in there. I know, because all our furniture's there. And that's all that's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it could be way up in the corner, that has access rarely. Or someplace that, they just need to be able to be bringing in and out. They want an outside door so they can get in and out at their own leisure without having to get in the building. But there's a couple other spaces that are like that that could be utilized. The kid there, Jeff Anderson, that has 5,400 square feet. He's using half of it, if that. He does not, he kind of inherited a lease from the previous guy. I forgot his name.
That's, I think, the other important part about the management of the facility is that being looked at to say, you have way more space than you need. We can work with you'd actually pay less for your total rent because you'd be taking up less space. And then we can actually market this other space. So I think that
It is a management thing. And I think, again, this is what I take away from Mike or from Tom Mancuso, was to get a manager that's actually invested in working with the people and saying, hey, you got too much space for what you need. How about if you do this and I'll get another person in, and which is what he says, kind of negotiate through a better use of the space and clean them up as we go. That's kind of the middle ground where we take some money, we say, okay, let's put $100,000 in such and such a source. And we set about a plan, maybe have a master plan, have an idea what the city's going to do with their space, if at all. There are some issues in there about the ventilation and stuff that should be addressed. Are the bathrooms okay in there?
I don't know.
As I know we're having trouble with the bathrooms up in the office. They were getting clogged up. They weren't designed to handle the volume, which I'm surprised. But I think the bathrooms down by the DPW were cleaned up 30 years ago, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
So I had two main takeaways and things that I was focused on after meeting with Tom. The first being that if we're focusing on this being a mission driven build, if there's a mission behind this building and that's what's driving us, we need to stay focused there. And I think that's where we probably need to start, what do we want it to do? And I feel like this group really wants it to be that incubator or business growth space or whatever you want to call it. That's the sense I get, maybe not. But I think we need to decide that. And then the other piece, the quote that I had from him was that management is more important than money. So we talked a lot about management today, but really, where's that going to come from? It's not going to come from the city, so what does that look like? Because it's not a property manager like Webster either. It's something else altogether. So, but we need to know what we're asking them to manage, right? And I don't think trying to stay the course right now, it's not gonna work. It's the impression I get.
So one thing that you may want to consider, and you can go into executive session because you want to talk about the current management agreement. And maybe that may be something you want to do.
Okay, why don't we hold off
Okay,
that
sorry.
till the
Yeah.
second session?
I'm just thinking, let's think big picture. But then if we want to talk a management arrangement, let's go to talk about an individual contract in that session. But I do think, Irene, to your point, the mission piece is something that you have to really think about because, and Tom kind of broke it down into what you have right now is an aging building with multiple tenants paying cheap rent for their space.
And that's why they're there.
Yes.
That's the only reason they're-
I mean, when you started walking through the different businesses, we're not talking about incubating businesses.
No.
Very few of them are trying to build up their business. They are storage space.
Look
And
at,
we even advertise storage space there.
yeah,
So I think that's probably a different mission. And so there might not be alignment. So maybe more conversation around that. And Kat, I always
That's a
forget
good
you're
question.
up there if you had.
Catherine, you have anything? No? You're muted.
Sorry, all new systems. I can't, I don't know whether I'm coming or going or how to turn off mute. No, I don't have anything else. I am in agreement, with everybody actually, and particularly Lowell. So, yep.
That's dangerous, agree and slow, you know.
Yeah.
I want
So-
to ask Catherine a question. Just
Taking
Catherine,
a
from
big
your
risk.
experience on bid, what were you seeing as far as office or incubator space demands, right? Like, what is the culture around that in Geneva right now?
The most requests that I have are for places that want to work in a kitchen. And they don't want to work in shared spaces, but they need industrial equipment, baking supplies, and often a hood. Some of it's, some of it's storage, like Jan with the toy library, but almost all it is food service based.
Yeah. So, and even in, correct me if I'm wrong, but downtown Geneva, like there's vacant office space that's been sitting.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That doesn't belong to a landlord who doesn't want to rent it. Like we have the majority of vacant space there is a landlord who doesn't want to rent it, but there is still vacant space. It sits, I don't know, anywhere from 3 to 6 months, and then somebody will come in. We do not have a huge vacancy issue except with some of the larger spaces like Family Dollar. Yeah. Did that help?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And you still said we there, so thank you.
Oh, yes. Default. You can see my new office. I'm not
Nice
wearing my
blue
background.
Nice one.
I know.
I have a quick, I asked this before, but again, I have not had a tour, but,
Well,
in recent, I haven't
we'll
been in there in
talk about that.
20 years, but, with the need for housing, God, it just seems, I love those places that are built into old factories and so forth. And I'll tell you what my dream would be for that space, but I don't think it would necessarily work in Geneva, unfortunately. But in Somerville, Mass, they have all these old factories that have been converted into art studios and just the coolest spaces with living in them. And they have their open studio days and they're packed. There's a million people wandering around and, just like buying from them. And some people do live there and they're cool spaces, to live in and to do that kind of work. And I mean, that would be my dream thing. I can't say that it's gonna be financially viable, but the idea of living space, even if it's just this manager that we're looking for, gets that place who they can build it into a beautiful, cool living unit and maybe just have, I don't know, 10 or something in there. But apparently someone said the windows aren't right. I'm like, okay, well.
Correct.
You have to.
Yeah, you have to get rid of them because they don't have fire easements.
So I thought in our last GEC, when we had the previous GEDC committee we had the architects and engineers and everybody on there. We were told that there could never be housing. It's likely that there could never be housing on that site, period.
Because what was that?
Environmental concerns.
Yes, there's huge environmental concerns.
Oh, environmental concerns.
Well, and David and I took home leasing through there before they settled on the finding.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
And that was David's first.
Oh, too.
Thing he showed him.
Yeah.
And
They said no.
they know what they're doing. I mean.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing and they kind of, and I even got involved with the pitch a little bit, trying to say just what you said. Oh, this would be kind of cool. Look at.
Yeah, very cool.
The sawtooth, I mean, if you open that up, you put solar panels there. I
Yes,
can
yeah,
get
no
excited
way.
about all sorts of stuff.
I'd be moving in.
I would.
And how it would be neat spaces, you know?
Yeah.
And I even thought to take some of the, if going back toward the railroad tracks, make internal streets, kind of like they do on these malls. And then have these housing units that went off of there, you know, by taking part of the roof out and stuff, and you could still.
Yeah, yeah.
Really kind of, and then, but they just kind of said, I mean, the guy was actually the father of the current, he was an older John one. I think he's since retired. He went,
Yeah, he was the founder of the company.
he kind of went, you know, so I shut up. Trying to sell a little bit, but it was, you know, like there are environmental, there is fire issues, fire access issues.
And that's the challenge that, so you can do anything, really. If you have enough money, you can build there and all of that.
Right.
That's where the engineers from the first GEDC report were basically like, it's so cost prohibitive while you do all of the cleanup to make that happen.
CNS was a little bit more, the architect there, she was a little bit more amenable to, you know, doing some things. But like you said, it's how much money do you got? And she was talking about grant money to do things like solar panels and replacing with an electric heating system and having storage and all of that. But that's kind of it's a neat building. I wish that we had more suitable buildings like that.
Yeah.
It would be kind of neat spaces to do it, but it's a tough one.
You're thinking about like the cracker factory.
Well, like the Cracker Fair, there, I don't know if anyone's been in that apartment there, but it
I've
is
been.
stunning.
I've been, it's
Yeah,
great.
it's beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
just easy walk through and partitions and bedroom and bathroom. It's all well thought
Yeah, that
out.
was written up in a magazine.
Yes, it was. Yeah, with pictures, so
Nice article.
Yep.
Yeah, but the
it's not gonna,
third floor is still empty, right? I mean, he's got stuff up there, but not much. They don't use it for anything, right?
no, yeah, no, there's plenty of room left in that building. Yeah.
Josh,
So.
you got a spreadsheet for us?
To talk today, actually. So just because I'm new for basically all this. We sent out an RFP for the sale of the building, right? Or no?
No, we never did that.
Did we ever, I'm just trying to get context for like what we've done in the past. Did we ever approach people to buy the building? And the resounding answer was no, because of just the condition.
They'd be willing to buy it for $1.
Yeah, we've had.
Or for us to demolish it for $1.
Webster even was interested. David and I went to lunch with
Okay.
Craig Webster about, and he said, well, there's some things we could do and stuff. And then, so actually, David and I said at the same time, would you like to buy it? He kind of said for $1, you know, he would ask us, so we would eat our mortgage.
Yeah, I think that has been everyone that we've kind of had the conversations with. Once they view the building.
Yeah, they kind of back up. And to speak to what Tom Mancuso said, you give it away, you're not gonna get what you want at the end result.
Right.
You're assuming that they're gonna spend the money to bring it up to where it should be.
Right.
And if they're buying it for $1, they're not gonna do that.
Right.
You know, they're gonna shortchange it all along the way.
That's a good question, Tom.
Then you get it back. He said, you get it back to you. If you give it away, it comes back to you because they.
Yeah, they abandoned it themselves. You end up having it, but a building that's 4 years older, you know,
Yeah.
nothing done to it.
How about, so just because this has come up in conversation, just for sake of dialogue, the rents with the city, just because that's a sizable portion with DPW, and that's at a very favorable rate, and I believe that's a long-term lease. I've just read some things online, so that's really just my basis of thought.
bad news.
What's the temperature? Is there a temperature?
Is there a temperature with the city paying?
If there is an increase, if not, like,
So I think there's a couple things to look at. The space is probably not the most ideal space for us to utilize. So there's two pieces on that is, does it make sense long-term for the city to utilize a space that's not ideal and pay, you know, the rent they're paying now, we can make it work in the future.
See, all
Where-
our tenants say that.
Where's the cost? Exactly. And so I think what I'll be looking at is a DPW facility study to understand what size of building do we actually need? And what does that space look like? And there is state and other funding for that and for builds.
But even at that, 39 cents a square foot is pretty low. So.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's someplace between perfect space and 39 cents that was got planned that would be helpful to us.
Yeah,
You know,
potentially, yeah.
You know, to speak what Lowell said, even if it was incremental.
Yeah.
And whatever.
so the city would consider building a DPW specific location using grant funding, or is that kind of?
So that would have to be a discussion. My role would be to find out, does that make the most sense for the city? Because right now they have scattered site spaces with equipment scattered.
Yeah.
Does it make more sense from an administrative perspective as well as a facilities perspective to look at something different?
Shared space with a town.
That's another, yep, there's council members that want to look at that as well. Does it make sense to have a regional facility versus just a one locality facility?
So I thought would be, I forgot the total dollar amount that the city provides to the IDA for its lease there. But if it's like 30 cents times what, 20,000 square feet.
30,000 square feet. I think it's up to just 38.9 cents. 38. It just was an increase January.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's close to 40 cents now, yes.
40. Oh my God.
So we are paying.
Yeah, we've already gone up.
That should do it right there.
So it's like 12 grand about a year.
Yes.
It's not much.
Okay, because my thought was, and you don't pay utilities, do we bear utilities?
Oh,
City does, I believe.
we do, and we do repairs and
It's
maintenance on
proportionate.
that.
I think it's proportioned.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah.
And then the city's responsible for.
The problem with it, the problem with the way that the space is divided up and whatnot. They're taking the actual space instead of, there's no common areas that any of the tenants are paying for, or, you know, it's an old way of doing things.
So I wonder if, so because of this conversation, like the city, and I'm not trying to like get involved with the council's conversations at all, but just for the sake of the IDA, if the city is actually considering building a new DPW, and if there's some sort of joint effort for economic development, would it make sense for the city to potentially invest in, not necessarily in the structure on site, but not within the existing footprint, that like use the structure, but mitigate the issues that are making it not the most desirable.
Mhm.
So if there's walls, tear those down, and maybe that's where we get a grant writer. So ultimately, the Mancuso presentation, I think, was really good. All of this has to go back to, we need funding. And I think the primary source of funding is really going to be through grants, if we choose to keep the building. So we would have to hire a grant writer. I don't know exactly how the resources are divided up between the city and the IDA, but like maybe we hire our own grant writer just to not put more pressure on city staff. We could use, whether it's liquidity today or tomorrow, to do that. And then those grants are used to improve the building, and maybe help identify that mission-driven statement that we want to get back to, for the basics of that. So the Mancuso presentation, it really boiled down to, if you keep the building, you're basically going to have to be committed to it heavily for 3 to 5 years in terms of capital, like he called it bootstrapping. So basically, like no frills, like just getting back to basics. That essentially requires a grant writer. In my
One-
opinion.
One of the reasons we picked, this is going back a year, CNS Engineering out of Syracuse is because they have a grant writing department. We thought that was the initial work would be a springboard into that. They kind of fell short of it because we only paid them $15,000. So it really didn't get to the point where the information they got.
Yeah.
We were hoping that it would give us information to get to the grant and pay the grant writers to do it, but there's a huge gap.
Okay.
I mean, what was done was pretty broad brush.
Okay.
I think you also have a gap here that you just identified. And that if you don't have a vision for what your space is, you can't get a grant for that
Yeah.
space. Because a grant writer, yes, you need a new room, or yes, you need this thing. But what's gonna be the
Why?
end
What's the
result?
why?
Right, why should we
And so
fund
I
it?
think you've gotta really go back to that first question of why does this space exist? And I think including the city, and obviously we wanna use the space, we're not moving tomorrow, but I have to do my due diligence on all of this at any time. Why does the space exist, and is that even the best use as an IDA? Put the IDA hat completely on. Is having the highway facility there the best use for your incubator center? And I think that's the big key question, because, and I'm advocating to kick us out, but there's some benefit to that space that maybe other startup businesses can utilize better than if you were to go to that Y and you're talking about that other piece than a DPW facility.
On the other hand, you've mentioned that you're scattered. So find everything that's scattered and put them there and improve the area so well that everybody wants to go to work there.
Yeah.
And
I like that.
I mean, the whole package, instead of him and Joe over here and Larry over here, have Joe and Larry in their offices there. And have plenty of parking, easy access. I don't know about the railroad tracks, what to do with it, but that's something that architects could look at for us. And if they, since we have so many square feet, why do you have scattered spots like that? Why can't you come and?
We don't have enough space there for all of the equipment, and our equipment is all getting bigger. That's the other
It's
challenge.
more the equipment than the.
I was in that area. You have a lot of equipment.
Yes, we
A lot
do.
of equipment for a city of our size.
We have a lot of parks for a city of our size and cemeteries.
What if there was a conversation about like some sort of work relationship with the city and the IDA, where whether it's splitting the resources between the two for a specific grant writer, because it sounds like it's in the city's best interest to obviously have space for DPW, like that's a requirement of operating a successful city, like you need that space or space somewhere. And I think it would make sense to rent space from an agency that operates for the benefit of the city. So there's a number of parallels there. What if we worked together? And again, this is part of a broader conversation. It's just an idea where we try to make the space more attractive through partnering with the city to improve that particular space. And then that's also part of our mission. So driving down costs of the city while also improving the building for our mission, which is business incubation.
So I think that would be fine if your mission is business incubation and city Department of Public Works facility rental.
Okay.
That's a good mission.
I feel inspired.
But I think that's, be really realistic with on this brainstorm. And again, think about if that is it. And I think you can step into it. I think on the grant writing side, it becomes a little more
Fuzzy.
Yep. I think that's the key.
Okay.
Because just funding streams, doesn't mean you can't braid funding streams together, but it just gets a little, I like the word fuzzy. It's a good grant word.
And then taking down that 3-story building is going to require quite a bit of reconstruction on that anyway. I mean, there's some walls that are that will probably have to be removed and or stabilized.
Yeah.
Once the
Okay.
building's taken down, so, and that's where the salt thing is, right? The salt.
Yeah, it's right near there.
Yep.
Anyway, there's some,
Yes.
so when the building's taken down, that whole space, which is not the most conducive, could be restructured to make it a little bit more desirable for the city. But I agree with what Amy's saying. Is that what we want?
Okay,
Is that, I mean, it might be a great short-term solution.
sure.
You know,
Yeah.
that because I mean, first, the city to build a new building, it's 3 years, you know, maybe more.
You're being generous with 3 years.
And public meetings where we get all sorts of people coming to. So it needs to, I think we need to probably, as Irene said, start with our vision. Our goal for the building and whether or not, I think the concept of why we have the building is right. We're just not using it that way. I mean, we're not, if the concept is an incubator, they always called it that. It's supposed to be, that's what the GEDC stands for, Economic Development Center, but it, not happening. It hasn't been happening.
I think a vision for not just your building, but the space as well. So where I've seen like the Harvester Center in Batavia is a good example because they continue to grow and expand and now they're having concerts there in the back patio area. It's still an old building and some of the spaces look a lot like the GEDC and they continue to, operate and twist and turn. So I think that's the other piece to this, because you even mentioned, the railroad going through there. You now have passenger trains that are passing through that all of the time. Which when I was on the passenger train for the tour, we were talking about how that's not usually what's there. So it's not the most beautiful passenger rail. And the gentleman that's running it through here does it in Florida as well. And he said, you watch and some of these communities start to build up because they know that the train is passing through their backyard.
Yeah.
Also, they have, their neighbors saying, why do you dump your stuff back there? I saw it.
Yeah.
And as he's saying it, we're going past DPW and everything. And I was like, oh yeah, look at that. We could have some art there or something other than all of that. Just something to think about too, as you're not just talking about your building, and I think Mancuso kind of commented on that.
So how do you want to have that discussion? How do we do that? You want to go into executive?
Yeah, we probably should go into executive session to talk about a contract.
All right, wait, do you have one more thing? Can I say one more thing?
Oh, sure you can. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut.
It's okay. So I forgot who sent out this article, but it was about electricity and I don't know if it's still there. I think it was UN. And that's really hard to kind of come by, especially right now. And we just went to that Ithaca conference where I believe it was one of the directors of public whatever, or basically New York State, who oversees the NYSEG contracts, so on and so forth. She said it's not so much that there's a lack of power, it's getting it to the sites. So I wonder how much power is there and if we can attract something more
Good point.
industrial there because it is.
That's marketable.
Yep.
In this case, it's marketable.
Yep.
There was a Bitcoin mining company there for a while.
Okay,
5 years ago, maybe. They heated the building, by the way, over the winter.
Oh,
I
And
bet they did.
it was hot in there.
Have AC running all the time.
And I think the big fan is still installed.
Shared utilities.
Anyway, NYSEG put a new service in there, up the size of the service at that point. So I know there's capacity there. It needs to be better defined. Other than me, what I just said is all I know about it.
okay,
But I know that there was an investment for them, and I think they made the investment. I don't think we did.
I believe they did.
To upgrade it.
Bitcoin or NYSEG or both?
What's that?
Did Bitcoin or NYSEG fund the?
It wasn't Bitcoin. It was something else. It was.
That company.
That company.
Yeah.
Okay,
They sort of made the space work for them.
Okay.
They did the improvements to the space, yeah.
It's where the gym class thing, is there now, right on the, right, they had an outside door. And they had the doors
Coin
open.
miner, so I think they were called coin miner.
Yeah. But it was not a big space. This was like right in the beginning of all this stuff.
Okay.
And they, you would look in there and all these computers, that's all they're doing is going like this all day and night, just funny, but. So I'm basing that statement on the fact that, yes, we did it for them, which means that's unmarketable, commodity.
Right.
Just as I think in Geneva, it's marketable, you know, those are things, in fact, I wrote down on my notes from that presentation, we should be selling that.
Yeah.
You know, just like, you know, we have sewers and we have water and we have electricity, you know, at the road. And which makes developing anything
Right.
tremendously. I went to a seminar that Lions Bank put on at the Gearing Center Tuesday.
Okay.
And Matt Horn happened to put it in, and it was all about electricity. The whole thing was about connectivity of electricity and how. And Ryan Davis was on the board or on the panel. And the guy from Yates County, and I forgot who the third person was, but all about, you know, how can IDAs and planning boards and zoning boards bring development in? And that was one of the biggest things is where you've got to not just streamline what we do here and make it very clear of what a developer needs to do, but how do we make sure that there's the asset available for them to connect to and not get stopped?
I think we should market potentially, I don't know how that looks, but market the property with that asset in mind.
Yeah.
And if it
it's there.
was industrial space, I mean, one of the things that's hard to get when you get a small space is three-phase electricity.
That's, yes, that's
And
a huge asset advantage.
and there is three-phase of there.
Okay.
It's a lot of three-phase of there. I mean, when American Can, of course, this is old connections, but they had bus ducts everywhere. I mean, I think someone took them out because of the copper, but it was, I mean, that thing was connected. And they had probably 300 machines in that space. I mean, it was just one after another after another. It was just remarkable. So yes, it is a marketable thing, and that could be part of the mission that we're marketing manufacturing space or not warehouse.
Right.
And not necessarily for jobs. So that was kind of the thing that Tom was saying, that these 1,000 square foot spaces, you're talking about 4 people.
Right.
You know, that or the 3,000 square foot space. It's not, we're not doing it because of jobs. We're doing it because we're trying to grow a business.
Right. Wonder if we, and I doubt we know this, but know the capacity of the building and then try to figure out what businesses or industries line up with that capacity and try to market it that way. I'm not saying like we necessarily commission a study for that, but unless we want to, but if we can readily identify how much is available there, it's a fairly large site. And if we can then identify, is there demand for a particular industry and attract those particular tenants to that site, because they wouldn't be able to build this for a number of years.
Sure.
So
I think that's a good starting point for some of that in the.
And that's why I think we need a person, you know, just what we're talking about, because obviously Webster's not thinking that way. They might think that way if in fact they own the building. They might say, okay, we can do that. They have no incentive.
Right.
I mean, and clearly we're spending around $200,000 to manage that. Now, there's other expenses in there. It's not just what we're paying.
And we're not just cutting them a check, obviously, they take a cut of the monthly rents and things like that, so that's how they're paid. But when everything works itself out, it's roughly 200,000, give or take, you know, depending on the year and things like that, but.
Which technically, if we didn't renew their contract, would give us a lot of room to hire someone. I mean, like Edward just said, there's other expenses in there. I'm not saying 200,000 would be that person's salary, but you know, close to half, I would think. I mean, it's a math problem. We got a spreadsheet on it.
Somewhere else.
I mean, we could certainly figure that out. And then if you even just thought in terms of round numbers, and it's 200,000 total, and a person came in at 100, now you have 100 to use for mechanical, electrical, like things to get done.
And maintenance.
Marketing, whatever. So.
Should we go into that executive session?
I'd like to have a motion to go into executive session, please. Thank you, Dan and Lowell,
I'll
second.
second.
All right, thank you. Now, Nicole, how you gonna do this?
You make it.
If you just shut off the YouTube.
Yeah, if I lose you, will you pop back on? Okay, I'm gonna try not to lose you. So I'm just